In 1922, Gandhi was arrested and charged under sedition for three of his articles in his magazine Young India. At the conclusion of the trial, Gandhi was asked by the judge if he wished to make a statement before receiving sentence.
Your Honor, I entirely endorse the learned Advocate General's remarks in connection with my humble self. I think that he was entirely fair to me in all the statements that he has made. Because it is very true, and I have no desire whatsoever to conceal from this court the fact that to preach disaffection toward the existing system of government has become almost a passion with me. And the learned Advocate General is also entirely in the right when he says that my preaching of disaffection did not commence with my connection with Young India, but that it commenced much earlier. It will be my painful duty to admit before this court that it commenced much earlier than the period stated by the Advocate General. It is the most painful duty with me, but I have to discharge that duty knowing the responsibility that rests upon my shoulders. And I wish to endorse all the blame that the learned Advocate General has thrown on my shoulders in connection with the Bombay occurrences, Madras occurrences, and the Chauri Chaura occurrences. Thinking over these deeply and sleeping over them night after night, it is impossible for me to disassociate myself from the diabolic crimes of Chauri Chaura or the mad outrages of Bombay. He is quite right when he says that as a man of responsibility, a man having received a fair share of education, having had a fair share of experience of this world, I should have known the consequences of every one of my acts. I know that I was playing with fire. I ran the risk, and if I was set free, I would still do the same. I have felt it this morning that I would have failed in my duty if I did not say what I said here just now. I wanted to avoid violence. I want to avoid violence. Non-violence is the first article of my life. It is also the last article of my creed. But I had to make my choice. I had either to submit to a system which I considered have done an irreparable harm to my country, or incur the risk of the mad fury of my people bursting forth. When they understood the truth from my lips, I know that my people have sometime gone mad. I am deeply sorry for it, and I am therefore here to submit not to a light penalty but to the highest penalty. I do not ask for mercy. I do not plead any extenuating act. I am here therefore to invite and cheerfully submit to the highest penalty that can be inflicted upon me for what in law is a deliberate crime and what appears to me to be the highest duty. I owe it perhaps to the Indian public and to the public in England to placate which this prosecution is mainly taken up, that I should explain why from a staunch loyalist and cooperator I have become an uncompromising disaffectionate and non-cooperator. To the court too, I should say, why I plead guilty to the charge of promoting disaffection toward the government established by law in India. Your Honor, my public life began in 1893 in South Africa in the troubled weather. My first contact with the British authority in the country was not of a happy character. I discovered that as a man and as an Indian, I had no rights. More correctly, I discovered that I had no right as a man because I was an Indian. But I was not baffled. I thought that this treatment of Indians was an excess upon a system that was intrinsically and mainly good. I gave the government my voluntary and hearty cooperation, criticizing it freely where I felt it was faulty but never wishing its destruction. Consequently, when the existence of the empire was threatened in 1899 by the Boer challenge, I offered my service to it, raised a volunteer ambulance corps, and served at several actions that took place for the relief of Lady Smith. Similarly, in 1906, at the time of the Zulu revolt, I raised a stretcher bearer party and served till the end of that rebellion. On both these occasions, I received medals and was even mentioned in dispatches. For my work in South Africa, I was given by Lord Hardinge a Kesari Hind Gold Medal. When the war broke out in 1914 between England and Germany, I raised a volunteer ambulance corps in London consisting of the then resident Indians in London, chiefly students. Its work was acknowledged by the authorities to be valuable. Lastly, in India, when the special appeal was made at the war conference in Delhi in 1918 by Lord Chelmsford for recruits, I struggled at the cost of my health to raise a corps in Canada. And the response was being made when the hostilities ceased and orders were received that no more recruits were wanted. In all these efforts at service, I was actuated by the belief that it was possible by such services to gain a status of fully equality in the empire for my countrymen. The first shock came in the shape of Rowlatt Act, a law designed to rob the people of all real freedom. I felt called upon to lead an intensive agitation against it. Then followed the Punjab horror beginning with the massacre at Jallianwala Bagh and culminating in groveling orders, public floggings, and other indescribable humiliations. I discovered too that the plighted word of the Prime Minister to the Mussalman of India regarding the integrity of Turkey and the holy places of Islam was not likely to be fulfilled. But in spite of the foreboding and the grave warning of friends, at the Amritsar Congress in 1919, I fought for cooperation and working with Montagu Chelmsford reforms, hoping that the Prime Minister would redeem his promise to the Indian Mussalman that the Punjab wound would be healed, and that the reforms inadequate and unsatisfactory, though they were marked a new era of hope in the life of India. But all that hope was shattered. The Khilafat promise was not to be redeemed. The Punjab crime was whitewashed, and most culprits went not only unpunished but remained in service, and in some cases continued to draw pensions from the Indian revenue, and in some cases were even rewarded. I saw too that not only did the reforms not mark a change of heart, but they were only a method of further draining India of her wealth and of prolonging her servitude. With him, I came reluctantly to the conclusion that the British connection had made India more helpless than she ever was before, politically and economically. A disarmed India has no power of resistance against any aggressor if she wanted to engage in an armed conflict with him. So much is this the case that some of our best men consider that India must take generation before she can achieve the dominion status. She has become so poor that she has little power of resisting famines. Before the British advance, India spun and wove in her millions of cottage just the supplement she needed for adding to her meager agricultural resources. This cottage industry, so vital for India's existence, has been ruined by incredibly heartless and inhuman processes as described by English witnesses. Little do town dwellers know how the semi starved masses of India are slowly sinking to lifelessness. Little do they know that their miserable comfort represents the brokerage they get for the work they do for the foreign exploiter, that the profits and the brokerage are sucked from the masses. Little do they realize that the government established by law in British India is carried on for this exploitation of the masses. No sophistry, no jugglery in figures can explain away the evidence that the skeletons in many villages present to the naked eye. I have no doubt whatsoever that both England and the town dwellers of India will have to answer if there is a God above for the crime against humanity which is perhaps unequaled in history. The law itself in this country has been used to serve the foreign exploiter. My unbiased examination of the Punjab martial law cases has led me to believe that at least 95% of convictions were wholly bad. My experience of political cases in India leads me to the conclusion that in 9 out of every 10, the condemned men were totally innocent. Their crime consisted in the love of their country. In 99 cases out of 100, justice has been denied to Indians as against Europeans in the courts of India. This is not an exaggerated picture. It is the experience of almost every Indian who has had anything to do with such cases. In my opinion, the administration of the law is thus prostituted consciously or unconsciously for the benefit of the exploiter. The greatest misfortune is that Englishmen and their Indian associates in the administration of the country do not know that they are engaged in the crime. The crime I have attempted to describe. I am satisfied that many Englishmen and Indian officials honestly believe that they are administering one of the best systems devised in the world and that India is making steady through slow process. They do not know that a subtle but effective system of terrorism and an organized display of force on the one hand and the deprivation of all powers of retaliation or self defense on the other have emasculated the people and induced in them the habit of simulation. This awful habit has added to the ignorance and the self deception of the administrators. Section 124A, under which I am happily charged, is perhaps the prince among the political sections of the Indian Penal Code designed to suppress the liberty of the citizen. Affection cannot be manufactured or regulated by law. If one has an affection for a person or system, one should be free to give the fullest expression to his disaffection, so long as he does not contemplate, promote, or incite to violence. But the section under which I was charged is one under which mere promotion of disaffection is a crime. I have studied some of the cases tried under it, and I know that some of the most loved India's patriots have been convicted under it. I consider it a privilege, therefore, to be charged under that section. I have endeavored to give in their briefest outline the reasons for my disaffection. I have no personal ill will against any single administrator. Much less can I have any disaffection toward the king's person, but I hold it to be a virtue to be disaffected toward a government which in its totality has done more harm to India than any previous system. India is less manly under the British rule than she ever was before. Holding such a belief, I consider it is to be a sin to have affection for the system. And it has been a precious privilege for me to be able to write what I have in the various articles tendered in evidence against me. In fact, I believe that I have rendered a service to India and England by showing in non cooperation the way out of the unnatural state in which both are living. In my humble opinion, non cooperation with evil is as much a duty as is cooperation with good. But in the past, non cooperation has been deliberately expressed in violence to the evildoer. I am enduring to show to my countrymen that violent non cooperation only multiples evil, and that as evil can only be sustained by violence. Withdrawal of support of evil requires complete abstention from violence. Non-violence implies voluntary submission to the penalty for non-cooperation with evils. Your Honor, I am here therefore to invite and submit cheerfully to the highest penalty that can be inflicted upon me for what in law is a deliberate crime and what appears to me to be the highest duty of a citizen.